On frame 8, this is a U.S. stat, but the global stats are actually lower. This is the average number of domains this is the number of domains that the average American visits in 1 month, according to Nielsen. So the average American visits 111 top-level domains in a month. And that includes everything from, a link that somebody might share to me on New Straits Times to going to Facebook 10 times a day or going to Twitter 10 times a day. This number seems to be constant. That's the average. Now, it's a bell curve. So you have people who probably visit, 500 domains a month. And then you have people who visit 2. That's not a very, if you think about it, 111 domains, of which a lot of that is just, people passive going in and out as opposed to a consistent visiting, is not a very big number, at least in my view. And globally, it's well under 100. And if you go into certain markets in Asia, I know it's, for fact, it gets down to around 80 domains a month or 70. I think in China it's around 70 or 60. And obviously part of that might be firewall issues, but still, it's not a very, very big number. Frame 9. This is the average number of this is the average number of web pages, that an average American visits in 1 month. So this is the number of web pages that an average American visits in 1 month. 2,500 web pages. It's not a lot. It's not a lot. So if you're building these magnificent brand sites, these great sites that you spent a lot of money on, there's a very, very good chance that people won't visit them. They don't have time. Or if they do, they're going to be in and out of just one page that they found either on Google or increasingly through social networks. I believe most people will find and engage content in the next decade through search and social networking, which, by the way, are converging in a very big way. Frame 10. So and this has been happening for a number of years now. Our culture is changing as a global society. We're no longer necessarily, used to be we would have a content meal, right? So every day, I know that when I was starting APR 15 years ago, I read 3 papers a day. I would buy the Times, New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, and USA Today, and just cover to cover. I wouldn't read every article, but I would certainly go through it and read what I need to know, and that's how I stayed up to date as a savvy PR professional. And I don't think anyone does it anymore. I think that now there might be, we might pick up The Economist and read cover to cover or whatever, but beyond 1 or 2 sources, we're snacking all day long on stuff. It's everything from YouTube videos to tweets to RSS feeds to just, even sites like Google News. We are snacking all day long and I think that's a global trend. It's more pronounced in certain markets than it is in others. I think the U.S. tends to be first, but it is a global trend that we are snacking on media. 11. The other thing that's happening is that it's also becoming faster, as I mentioned. It's now a real-time environment. Things stream by us in real time. And I wrote a post yesterday or the day before about RSS. And I've been using RSS readers since the end of 2003, so almost 6 years now. And, I gotta tell you, it's been a wonderful, tool to help me stay up to date. But now I feel like RSS for me is starting to get slow. And I'm starting to set up Twitter lists and things like that and use some different tricks to kind of alert me to things faster. The world is speeding up. It's now real time. And that means for brands and companies, you got to engage real time. Otherwise, you're not going to be as relevant. That's just reality. On frame 12, it's happening. It started with blogs, and the conversation moved out of blogs for the most part, and now it's kind of moved into the stream of Twitter and Facebook. Now, maybe in a year there'll be another site that replaces Twitter. We'll see. I think Twitter, some signs are showing that Twitter is peaking. Facebook seems to be going very strong, and I think there's going to be a lot to hold people there. But my point is that there's no doubt the trends are it's going to get faster. It's going to be, shorter in duration and in length, and we're going to have to all think about how we cope with that. Frame 13. Here's an application. I don't care if you're an individual or a brand. I mean, if you want to covet attention, which a lot of us do, people need to hear things 3 to 5 times before it sinks in, and they will trust that information. And increasingly, it's from 3 to 5 different sources as well. And this is the data from the Edelman Trust Barometer, which it comes out every year. You can find it at edelman.com/trust. The next version of that will be out in February. And this is a key data point. It used to be, a decade ago, if you got, one big media placement or one big internet hit, that was it. You reached everybody. No more. Now you got to be everywhere. And otherwise they won't trust it. Frame 14. The other observation we've had, we've seen this for a number of years now, is that people who are digitally engaged in particular need to hear things from certain types of sources over others before they trust it. And if you look what's there, conversation with friends and peers, which to me is happening on social networking sites. Even though social networking sites is at the bottom of the list there, I think that this really does not represent it's really people, and those conversations are starting to happen online more than offline. And it's also conversations with companies' employees. So if your employees are out there and engaged, they're more likely to trust you. If you're not, and you're speaking from a top-down model, you're going to be less trusted. So this is just a key trend, and this is happening, and we're all dealing with it. Okay. Frame 15. So now let me talk about how sometimes I discover these things first as an individual. And I kind of say, how do I change what I do to be better, and to communicate better? And then I think about what the implications are for my clients and advise them accordingly. So, I started a blog in 2004 called Micro Persuasion. And it was just on a whim. I woke up one morning and said, gee, there's this thing called blogging. I should try it. And I want to see what it is. And I just tried it. And I blogged every day for almost 3.5 years, 3 times a day, if not more. And then once Twitter came along, I began to blog less and began to post to Twitter more, and obviously I began to engage in other channels as well. Well, I decided that I still liked having a hub for my content and having that content go out to the edges, the spokes, the social networks where I'm engaged. It's kind of hub and spokes strategy, like a wheel, like a bicycle wheel. And I found a little platform called Posterous that lets me post to that site, but also syndicate my content out into different social networks where I'm engaged, which, by the way, will change over time. So I moved to this live stream kind of model, and I like it, and it's working for me. Frame 16, this kind of shows my flow. I collect information from a lot of different sources. Either I create it myself, or I find it in different sources. And this, by the way, has changed since this chart. I think, what I'm using now is kind of different. I tend to process all my stuff in Gmail. That's just where I kind of filter everything. I send everything into Gmail to process later. And then I used Gmail to post to Posterous. And then automatically, when I do, I make choices. I say, okay, this is a video, I want it going to YouTube. This is a status update, I want it going to Twitter. And I syndicate out to different places. And then once my content is out in those social networks, I engage with it around there. So if I post to my site and then it goes into Facebook, I will go and people leave a comment there, I will engage with it there. Or if it goes into Twitter and people leave a comment there, I will engage with it there. So 17, I think we're moving to this model where soon everything we do, for those of us who want to publish, will be captured everywhere. This whole phenomenon of life logging, I think, is something that could be taking hold in the next decade. Okay, so what does this mean for you as a company or as an individual? Well, I think I'm going to give you 3 things to think about. First is you have to be ubiquitous. I mean, in all the places where you think your stakeholders are spending time, you have to be ubiquitous. And the way you can do that is to build out embassies, digital embassies, in all the different venues that matter to you, where you think that the conversations are happening that are relevant to you and your brand or yourself. Frame 19, as I mentioned, is hub and spoke approach works. You have your website as a hub. It's going to be very good for Google for the next few years. Business Week, for example, gets 45% of its traffic from search. And then you have spokes around that where you engage, and those spokes will change. Right now, I think it's primarily 3 or 4 different social networks. Frame 20. Here's a company that's doing this as one of our clients, eBay. They have a whole site where they show you, hey, it's all the different sites where you can connect with us. Here's our Twitter presence. Here's our blogs, etc. And also, here's where you can engage with us right here on our site. And that's an example of a hub and spoke approach.